Representing Canada's financial capital, the fourth largest city in North America, and the most amazing city in the world. This is Toronto Business Journal.
In this edition of the Toronto Business Journal, our main headline is Toronto's hot real estate market. In our Business Sense segment, we talk to a legendary Canadian philanthropist, investment banker, Order of Canada recipient, and best-selling author whose book was recommended by a former Prime Minister of Canada. You'll learn how our featured entrepreneurs are building a sustainable future in Toronto, as well as what's in store for Toronto's cultural industries. And you won't want to miss our sneak preview on brazen shoplifting south of the border in San Francisco. Welcome to the Toronto Business Journal. Hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here once again for the Toronto Business Journal, and I am joined here today by the president of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, Lisa Patel. Lisa, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Sam, and it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Lisa, what is going on in the real estate market in Toronto and beyond?
Well, you posed a really good question. And what we've seen in the course of since this pandemic has really taken place. I mean, if I go back to 2020, what we witnessed is there was a halt in the marketplace. But when we walked into 2020, we were already seeing demand. Demand was already there. And in fact, and as we progressed through the pandemic, and our world opened up into the various stages here at home in Ontario, what ended up happening is the demand for real estate went even bigger. And we witnessed record-breaking months. And going into 2021, it almost felt like a deja vu because it was like 2020 again. And, we were already seeing trends of an increase in sales in December, and here we are, walking into 2021 January, and the same thing appears as 2020. We witness a massive surge for recognizing that real estate is still very strong. And in our report that we put out, and I know I'm touching on so many different points, but there's so many perspectives here. And the thing is, what we've witnessed most importantly, and in speaking with presidents around the world of other boards and associations, I can tell you that the demand for real estate is not just a thing here at home in Ontario or GTA or Canada. It is a worldwide situation. People have recognized that lifestyle is important. People have recognized the value of real estate, and it's going to just continue.
Lisa, when I purchased this property 15 years ago, I got into a bidding war, and I have to tell you, it was a really stressful weekend. But that seems to be the norm now. So how can prospective home buyers navigate this incredible market, for lack of a better term?
Well, I think the thing is, the trend of multiple offers has been around us for some time, but we've never seen it so consistent to where it's been month after month. And I think that's been a new trend, and also a little bit of exhaustion. So what's to keep in mind for anybody that wants to enter the marketplace is first take a breath. And know that you might need to take a couple of extra breaths through this process. See, exactly.
Oh, that felt good. Yeah.
Because it can be overwhelming, and it also can be exhausting at the same time, especially when, you find a home that you like and there could be, 7 or 8 other people that are interested in that property too. But I would say, use a realtor. Use a realtor, trust your realtor in this process. They've been through this process. They're going to take you through this process, and also trust yourself. Never lose momentum or faith in your own beliefs.
Okay, wow. Is there such thing as a win-win? I know you and I spoke briefly before, but in this climate, how can people, make it so that vendors and purchasers, both get along well, and that this whole thing works out for both parties?
There's a couple of factors. I think mindset always plays a role in our lives, right? It's tuning into our own vibrations. So real estate is also very emotional, and we can never forget that. It's the way that we feel, it's the way that we think. One of the things that the pandemic has brought out than anything else is what is home. You take a house and you make it home. You add maybe those colorful cushions that give you life, paint a wall that gives you life. So everything is vibrationally connected. And to get into that win-win, we have to get ourselves attuned to that win-win, and believing in not only ourselves, but believing in the process and trusting the process and going through the process. Know that, you know what, you may not get the first win, but it's coming, and believe that it's coming. Know and trust that it's coming. And that I'm a big good believer in all of these, like more of the, I guess, the levels of consciousness. So taking yourself to that other belief system of like trusting in universal source, and that there's a process to everything. One door closes, another will open. And that door is coming, and maybe that one door didn't open for a reason, and that reason you don't need to know, and that wherever you're going is meant to be, and that you're just, and it's going to be even better.
Wow, I could talk to you forever about this. That's really intriguing and wonderful to hear from President of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So mindset having such an important part in dealing with this situation, and in coming out both parties on top. What resources exist out there, especially online, for prospective buyers?
Well, you know what, one thing I will suggest for anybody that maybe you're a first-time home buyer, or you want to know about tax credits, RSPs, home buyer plans, or Ontario Healthy Home Renovation Tax Credits, I would technically tell you to visit TRREB.ca, because we've got tons of resources there that are available at your fingertips. And of course, even reach out to TRREB. If there's something that you want to know, we've got an incredible tools that are on real time that will help you through transition, learn more. But there's tons of material out there that can help you. And even to speak to a realtor. A realtor can also provide a lot of different resources and tools.
How can you spell TRREB for us? Like, I think there's a double T in there.
Oh, no, we're not going there. You are going
that's right.
now, right? Okay,
TRREB.
so
TRREB.
Fred, you've got it. You can say it better than that. I know you can. I'd like the French version, please.
TRREB. Ooh la la.
I love it.
We'll talk offline. One more question for you, Lisa, if you may. Your insights into commercial real estate at this time, please.
Okay, so we actually have held quite a few commercial forums this year, and we actually just recently did one with Miami Association of Realtors, because they're also a partner of a board of ours, and I can tell you that the commercial world is changing. We know that once we shift a little more through this pandemic and our world opens up, that we're going to expect to see, a little bit of hybrid motion take place. If we speak to the mayor of Toronto, he firmly believes, and I stand behind him on this, that, our city is going to come back alive into new lengths, and I strongly believe in that. But in terms of commercial, we expect to see a lot more commercial play. One of the biggest, hottest industries right now is the industrial side of things, but we expect to see a lot more on the East Corridor. So certain pockets of the GTA, we expect to see a lot more movement happening, but the commercial world is still very much happening at this point.
Is there any final message you'd like to give to prospective homeowners?
I do want to add one thing,
Please.
though. The only question part is going to be office space. That's going to be a transition between 21 and 22. We will see transition, of people moving back into that workforce. The only thing that I hope is not only for our human race is that we give ourselves, and the government gives everybody, time to readjust and realign themselves back to another norm, just because we've gotten so used to the work from home motion.
And I mean, look at us right now on Zoom, So
you would be right here in person with me.
I would be.
Had, the big slice or something.
That's right. That we have to talk about that big pizza in Scarborough. So thank you for that, Lisa. Is there anything else you would like to add? Any final message for any prospective home buyers who are frustrated in this current market?
You know what, honestly, I would just say, just take your time. I know that I know that situations are.
Feels like that's the last thing you have, right? Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose a deal.
You know what, breath and water are lifesavers, right? At the end of the day. And so really and truly, it's when we are forcing ourselves to accept something, or we make the process more challenging. We just got to ebb and flow with it, and know that, and believe in the process. And, you know, I know it's going to be a little harder for a lot of first-time buyers, especially with price points and, you know, the stress tests and all of those things. But don't give up on your belief. Like, home ownership is the Canadian dream. And I strongly believe that, and we've got reports to backdate that. But believe in your dream, and if it's not happening now, don't give up on it. Know that it will happen.
That's wonderful. On that note, Lisa, President of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sam Dubé on behalf of the Toronto Business Journal. Thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate it. And good luck to everybody out there.
Go. Hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here for the Toronto Business Journal, and I am joined today by a legendary philanthropist and investment banker. It is my great honor to welcome Donald K. Johnson to our show. Don, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be here.
Now, Don, you are the author of the best-selling book, Lessons from Bay Street, and the subtitle is The Sale Begins When the Customer Says No. You've got so many endorsements and accolades for this book, most notably by former Canadian Prime Minister Paul Martin. John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, has said about your book and yourself, persistence, relationship, and decency. Don Johnson is the living proof that those qualities can produce a successful business leader and a generous citizen. This book tells his story, and every ambitious young Canadian should read it. And this is one of many endorsements by the former Canadian ambassador to the U.S., Frank McKenna, Karen Kane, the legendary ballerina and artistic director for the National Ballet of Canada. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Insight. So what was your motivation for writing this book?
Well, what motivated me to write the book really was not a memoir. It was really to share with the readers lessons that I've learned over my lifetime that I think could benefit the readers and a broad cross-section of potential readers. And I wanted to share with them what I've learned.
Okay, I do want to mention to people that one of your great achievements was spearheading tax reform in Canada, where you basically had them pursue a more U.S. model where capital gains was eliminated. Capital gains tax was eliminated on publicly traded securities used as donations to charities. And as a result of that, since 2006, when the last of those capital gains were removed, $1 billion a year on average of gifts in stock have been made to charities in Canada, and that is because of you. And you were given a member of the Order of Canada and made an officer of the Order of Canada, our second highest honor for this. So I just wanted to say that, I know, because you're not going to mention it. Now, please go ahead.
It was one of the most gratifying experiences I've had, because philanthropy is so important. It's very important for us to give back to the communities that have helped us in whatever success and enjoyment we've had in life. And
well, this is it, right? Like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. My two favorite expressions are, it's better to give it away with a warm hand than a cold hand. And he who gives while he lives also knows where it goes.
Wow. You know, and what's interesting, and the first one, giving away with a warm hand and a cold hand, is one of the title chapters of your book. And there are some other very intriguing titles there as well. You don't tend to associate this kind of philanthropy with an investment banker, Don.
Well, my experience has been, I not only enjoyed my career in investment banking, but I've really enjoyed sitting on the boards of not-for-profit organizations and helping communities that have really helped me in whatever success I've enjoyed.
Well, you mentioned three mantras in another interview, and they were the subtitle of your book, The Sale Begins When the Customer Says No, Persistence Prevails When All Else Fails, and of course, Winston Churchill's famous quote, never give up, never give up, never, ever, ever give up. And, that's one of my favorite quotes as well. You have some other titles here, and I'd like to get into them. These are chapter titles. And what did you mean by silver linings in tough times? And how can we apply that to this pandemic situation that we're in right now?
Well, because of COVID-19, I'm now home all day, every day, 7 days a week. And I'm actually in better health now than I was previously. I get more exercise. I go for a walk every morning. I have better night's sleep. My mattress HBN, horizontal by 9, which I always do now. And I eat more nutritious food because I eat at home. I don't go to restaurants and all these events. So I'm actually, one of the silver linings I'm in better health now than I was a year ago.
And you also mentioned practicing a mindfulness technique for over 50 years, and that being transcendental meditation. And that's something that we have in common, actually.
Right.
So what advice can you give the average person and small business owners during this trying time when people are going bankrupt? We've got these lockdown restrictions. We've got financial hardship everywhere. Can you give us some insight, Don?
I think that people should focus on what's really important to keep healthy. And one of the key things in my life has been dealing with stress. We lead very stressful lives now, and the best way, from my experience, to deal with stress is transcendental meditation.
Yes.
Stress weakens your immune system, makes you more susceptible to illness, to anxiety, depression. And my experience has been, because of my transcendental meditation practice every day, twice a day, that deals with my stress, and it helped me deal with the challenges associated with this COVID-19 pandemic.
So health is a priority, and we can see that people are not taking care of themselves during this crisis, and so that's one of the cornerstones of your success. The sale begins when the customer says no, and you were talking about the focusing on what?
Well, I think it's important for each of us to focus our time and energy on something where you can make a real difference. If you really believe it's the good thing for the country. And my experience has been on our advocacy campaign to convince the government to remove the capital gains tax on gifts of stock. It started in 1995, and it wasn't until 2006 that they removed the rest of the capital gains tax and gift of stock. So it was really good public policy. It was the right thing to do for the government and for donors and for the people that benefit from the charities. So the government said no many, many times, but we just kept focusing on that because it was the right issue, it was the best thing for the country.
And now government officials are endorsing your book, actually. So what,
Paul Martin,
that's right, who you had to convince.
1997.
That's right, former Canadian Prime Minister Paul Martin, and he's one of the main endorsers of your work. What other advice can you give business owners during this trying time? And investors, Don.
Well, I think one of the key experiences I had in life is the success of a company from an investment perspective is the attributes of the CEO. If the CEO has unquestioned integrity and has a real vision for the future of the company, is a real team builder, and has a strong desire to succeed, those are the attributes that give a company great success. And that's my experience, especially with a company called Go Easy.
And what company is that? Go Easy.
It's a company in the financial services industry, where the CEO, when I attracted the CEO back in the year 2000, the market cap of the company was $10 million. He was CEO for 18 years and now the executive chairman. And the market cap of the company now is $2.4 billion.
Wow.
Driven by the success of a CEO. I say 3 things are essential choosing a career. Number 1, do what you love to do. Number 2, do what you're really good at. Number 3, do it with people you love to be with, both internally and externally. That takes care of everything. If you don't love what you do, try something else.
Fantastic. And of course, doing it with people that you love. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
You know,
like you and me.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sure. So when do I get paid? Yeah. So Don, you were just about to talk to me about some advice you had for people becoming president of a company.
And when I became president of Burns Fry in 1984, I made a cold call to the co-CEO of Goldman Sachs, that was my role model, John Whitehead. And I met with him in New York, and he gave me some great advice. He divided his time in 3 different areas, roughly 1/3 in each. One is management, one with corporate government clients, and one sitting on the boards of not-for-profit organizations. And his time in each of those 3 areas benefited him in his role in the other 2.
Okay.
So since then, I joined the board of 4 not-for-profit organizations. I've been on the board now for about 20 years, each one of them. And I really enjoy that. That's some very interesting people.
So there's this kind of gain in taking different roles, benefits to other roles. There's this kind of overflow and overlap. And your mentor actually gave you that advice.
Yeah.
I think personally, like I will say that's very valuable advice. Yeah. I can speak to that.
My life.
Yeah. How about any advice about raising capital?
My experience in raising capital for companies or investing in companies, you really have to have the confidence that the CEO of the company has all the right attributes to be a successful CEO, and that the company has a board of directors that is really playing an important role in the corporate governance. You have to have that confidence before you can have the confidence to raise capital for the company, and you want to invest in that company that it has all those right attributes.
Understood.
Yeah.
Don, I know we've got limited time. I'm going to say on behalf of myself and the Toronto Business Journal, it's been truly an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much for being with us today, and stay healthy, and I wish you all the best. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. You're really super, Sam.
Hello, hello, my beautiful friends, and thank you very much for joining us once again on Toronto Business Journal. I'm Conchetta Rose. Carma Farms is a one-stop shop for a true farm-to-table experience. They sell naturally raised meat, Ontario-grown products, local dairies, bakery items, and house-made condiments. Here to discuss her beautiful farm, Carma Farms owner, Andrea. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I apologize. It's after hours for Andrea. She worked a full day at the farm and is now talking to us. So thank you so much again.
No problem. Thank you.
So I have a few questions about your gorgeous farm. First and foremost, what's the history behind your farm? Was it inherited? Did you guys buy it yourselves?
So our farm, I'm a third generation farmer. It started with my grandparents in Agincourt. They farmed just for themselves, and then any extra produce they would sell, and then that turned into a business. My dad eventually took over with my mom. And when the property in Agincourt was expropriated for the Tam-O'Shanter golf course, my parents moved the farm up to Stouffville. So that was in 1972. So we've been at this location since 1972. And my parents, they did farm market right off the get-go from there. And everything we grew in Stouffville, we would still drive down to Agincourt and sell off the farm stand from there. And then we closed that. I'm not even sure what year we closed that in, but we still have tons of customers that come in and go, I know who you are. You're the Shapaks down in Agincourt. And so then we closed the current location in 2010. My dad was really ill and he passed away in 2012. So we had closed then. And my husband, he had worked for my dad when he was a teenager and I was a kid. I was 11, he was 16, fell in love with him, never stopped loving him. So he, for the past 10 years, he's been like, let's reopen. Because we had always, during that 10 years, we had been doing we'd raise chickens and pork and grow vegetables for ourselves. And he was like, come on, let's do it. So we finally had decided to do it. And then COVID happened. So it was an interesting time.
But it didn't stop you. It didn't slow you guys down?
No, we've, it's actually, I would say I don't want to say it's been a benefit towards us, but it's definitely made people stop and think about where their food is coming from. They want to shop local. They want to shop Ontario products. And that is all we do. We only sell Ontario produce. It is not all ours. We definitely can't grow it all, but everything is either local or Ontario. And same with all of the products that we sell. The chicken and the pork is all raised by us. It's raised on pasture. So you can come, you can see the animals, you see what they're eating, you see how they are being treated. So you know exactly where your food is coming from.
That's amazing. So what made you want to switch over the model to begin with so that it's it's for the farming for the community?
So this is our life. This isn't a job for us. This is literally our life. This is what we do every day. The chicken and the pork, that's our big thing, is the pork. We raise all heritage breeds. And so we had been experimenting with different feeding methods with them. Friends that we knew, they were buying, they'd buy a quarter pig from us or a half pig, and now everybody loved it. And then we got into, because we also had laying hens so we'd have people stopping to buy our extra eggs. And then we got into bees. And so we got into honey production. So at that point, we were like, hey, we have some pork that we've done. Do you want to try it? And they were like, this is awesome. You have to sell this. So it just it's been a snowball and it keeps getting bigger.
So what made you plow right through the pandemic? Was it just that you were in demand?
That's what it was. We were in demand, that people wanted to know where it all came from and how it was grown and raised. Wow. And we have enjoyed opening up our farm to the communities. We know a lot of people don't live the life that we live. So for them to be able to come and see the animals up close, we have kids from the city that they go, what is that thing? And I'm like, oh, that's a pig, because it's a different breed of pig. It's not a pink pig. So they're blown away that this giant thing in front of them is what they now know is the pig.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's talk about the future of Carma Farms. What do you guys got going on for the future?
So we're just opening up new pastures and new area. So what we've opened up now, there's about 8 acres that we've opened. We brought in llamas. We're bringing in mini horses. We're doing like a little kids area so that there's more room, and that's our goal is to not charge for that area, because we want people to be able to come out and do something during COVID. Like, there's nothing to do. So this gives people an opportunity to get outside with their families, with their kids, enjoy life.
Yes, what an amazing gift you're giving your community. That's just incredible. And what do you take away from that? What do you and your husband get to take away from all that?
It is mind-blowing, the support and the love that the community has shown us. Like, everybody, the comments that people make to us in person, online, like, it is, that in itself is gratifying, that people appreciate what we are doing, that it's not just, oh, we're just another farm store. Like, they appreciate what we are doing. They appreciate that we're there for the community. So that's sort of why we're doing it.
Incredible. Wow. Thank you on behalf of the community, for sure. So where can our friends find you? Where can they reach out? Do you have a website where they can reach out to you?
Yep. So our website is www.carmafarms.com. We are on social media, so Instagram and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook are the best ways to reach us. We do have an email, carmafarms@hotmail.com. That one is the response you get isn't as quick as with Facebook or Instagram. And that we update daily with like pictures of what we're doing or products that we have. So that is always the best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, and don't worry about that response time. Everybody knows what you're doing.
We try to be quick. We try to be prompt.
Sure you do. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us here today. We so appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here once again for the Toronto Business Journal, and I am joined by Rhonda Title-Payne, who is a co-coordinator for the Toronto Urban Growers. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Sam, and thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking about food.
Well, here we go. Can you tell us what the Toronto Urban Growers is?
Well, we're a network of just about anybody in the city of Toronto who grows food in the city. So our members include people who are backyard growers, balcony growers. We have community gardeners. We have organizations that run gardening programs as part of their community work. And of course, we have urban farmers who are growing food commercially. So surprisingly, with this group of people, all of the issues are kind of the same thing. People are coming together for the same reason. They want to learn from each other. They want to remove the barriers to growing food in the city, and they want to celebrate with each other.
I checked out some of your videos in your website, and there were literally images of growing things in so many different locations, spaces that were not being used, efficient use of space, people sharing the responsibility. It was wonderful to look at. Now, can you explain to us what some of the health and environmental benefits are to growing food in the city, or growing anything in the city, actually?
Growing anything in the city, correct? Well, when you're growing food, I mean, the really obvious thing is that you get really fresh, tasty food for yourself, for your family, to share with your neighbors, to share with your community. So that's one main reason that people do it. But we're also hearing lots of stories from people who are getting access to foods that are kind of familiar to them, either because their families grew them or it's a cultural thing, and they can't necessarily get that food elsewhere in the city, or it's very expensive. So it's important to grow for that reason. I think all of us can now identify, during the pandemic, we all got in touch with nature a little more, and that really helped our mental health. And growers will tell you that as well, that seeing things grow, participating in that process is huge for their physical well-being, for their mental well-being. And what I like to remind people is they think they're doing that for themselves, But if you're growing something on, say, like a front yard or a balcony that other people can see, or even like a right of way on a street somewhere, you're doing that not just for yourself, but other people get to see nature around them, and you get to feel that the clean air and the lower temperatures and so on. So it's really a collective thing. It's a thing that benefits everybody.
Absolutely. Well, humans have been involved in agriculture for tens of thousands of years, if possibly not even more. And in addition, we're tribal, right? We're tribal, and I'd like to think somewhat altruistic as well. But definitely during this pandemic, mental health has suffered hugely. And I know how I feel when I'm gardening, and it's something I need to pick up on for sure. But can you talk a little bit about the economic benefits of growing food in the city?
So I think when we're talking about things like climate change, there's a few pieces. I mean, there are economic impacts to climate change from the city's perspective, from businesses' perspective, from people who are growing food. There are a lot of challenges that come from that. And one of the biggest challenges with climate change is specifically people feeling like they don't know how to take action on it. It seems like a big piece.
Yeah.
So when people get to take a small step, like growing food, or knowing that the business that they're operating is growing food and creating green spaces in the city, then that helps them to take more actions. So, I mean, to get back to the economic point, I think there are some businesses in the city that are thriving farm businesses, and there are some jobs that are created. But the most important impact, I think, for people is the access to training, so that in a city environment, they can learn how to grow food, and then they move on to a larger farm as they can. Training in all kinds of job-related skills. So how to organize a community, how to work with people from very different backgrounds, all of that planning is important job training. And then for people who are kind of not very wealthy, the small amount of money that they can make from growing as sort of a part-time job is very important to them. So we see a lot of people in communities who are making extra dollars that make a huge difference to their quality of life. It's not a full-time job, but they are able to supplement their income.
In your videos, you mentioned that it's truly an exchange. And, I could see how just talking about it right now, we can see how evident that is. If a business wanted to help out growing food in the city, what can they do?
So, there's a couple of obvious things. Buy local. On our Toronto Urban Growers website, we have lots of local producers and businesses listed, so you can find them there. Donating to a community garden, whether it be cash or an in-kind thing, is always a great support. But the really interesting one, I think, that is fairly new, is being able to share your space. So if you're a business that has a bit of a campus out front, or you've got a storefront or something like that, and you want to both do a little bit of beautification and greening, you can offer that space to a gardener, and they can grow food there, as well as pollinator plants, things that are very attractive. So we actually have a program that gives people the tools to do that matching, so that there are questions that they can ask each other to make a successful agreement on how to share that garden.
Speaking of agreement, you mentioned earlier, you alluded to challenges, and I'm thinking garden sharing, conflicts, unequal power, all this stuff. So what are some of the challenges involved in growing food in the city?
I think in some ways a plus can sometimes create a challenge. So people who are growing food are really innovative, as you noticed, in terms of the kinds of spaces that they're growing in, the kind of food they're growing, the arrangements that they make to get access to the space, how they market it. It's all very creative. And unfortunately, sometimes the policies in the city don't match that. So urban agriculture is new enough that a lot of the policies that are written around land usage and planning don't have any recognition of urban agriculture. They don't know what it is. They don't know where it fits. So what that means is that there are some barriers sometimes to starting up projects, whether it be businesses or even community gardens. And then I guess the other thing I would say is that across a big city like this, whether there's a pandemic or not, getting together with other growers to learn from each other is really important, but it can be really challenging. It takes time, it takes technological knowledge, and not everyone has that. So we try to help break down those barriers by creating opportunities for people to share what they're doing, share what they're learning. So, and people are very generous with that knowledge. They want to share with each other. They want to learn from each other, which is really heartwarming. It's really great to see.
Yeah, I think one of the ultimate goals of learning something is learning the ability to teach it and pass it on. You know, yeah, and
yes,
make the cycle perpetuate itself. Now, you had mentioned something to me earlier, Urban Agriculture Week in September. It's currently May 2021. So can you talk to that?
We decided that one of the ways to increase the awareness of urban agriculture and all the benefits it has for the city is to have first it was one day in September where we get to tell the story of all of the great different kinds of growing that's happening, whether it be businesses or community gardens or balcony gardeners, people who are just passionate about growing food and what that means to the people that they're growing it for. So we started off with one day, but then one day is just not enough to celebrate all the great stuff that's going on. So now it's 9 days, this year, September 11th to 19th. So we're going to have events all across the city. There's a Best in Growtio urban style agriculture contest. So bring your funniest vegetables. And this year we're launching, yep, funniest vegetables, biggest cucumber, you name, like lots of categories you can choose from.
Oh, are you doing drug testing?
No
steroid testing.
There's no cannabis category this year. Maybe later.
Oh, I know. I was referring to a genetic manipulation of fruits and vegetables, or drugs, drug testing, like in human athletics. Yes, exactly. No, I know you guys are pretty much all organic. Is that correct, or does it?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Question, more personal question for you. What's one of your proudest moments with regard to the Ontario urban growers? You yourself, Rhonda.
I guess, just seeing even in my own neighborhood, how people pick up on the idea. I'm very lucky. I have a house with a front yard. And when I first moved in, it was incredible to just see how more and more people turned their lawns into food growing gardens, and all the conversations that came up, that suddenly I got to know so many more of my neighbors. And I think that's happening at different scales all across the city. Sometimes we hear those stories and sometimes we don't. But what it means to individual community members in a space to connect like that is big. And so now a lot of my neighbors are also growing vegetables and pollinator gardens in their front yards. So we're spreading the green a little.
Building community, one step at a time.
One plant at a time.
One plant at a time. Well said, Rhonda. On that note, your website is torontourbangrowers.org. Is that correct?
That's it.
Okay, so I encourage people to take a look at that. Rhonda, I'm Sam Dubé on behalf of Toronto Business Journal. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us about Toronto urban growers. I wish you all the best. And to our viewers, thanks for watching.
Thanks very much, Sam.
Hello, I'm Christine Sloan Stoddard, arts correspondent for the Toronto Business Journal. I'm joined here today by Claire Hopkinson, Director and CEO of the Toronto Arts Council and the Toronto Arts Foundation. Welcome, Claire.
Oh, thank you, Christine. It's delightful to talk to you.
Same. So let's talk live theater. How is Toronto preparing for a return to live shows?
Well, I'll tell you, the theater community is very excited, would be an understatement, is eagerly anticipating a relaxation of the public safety measures so that they can get out and do what they do best, which is entertain the audiences. We have an incredibly diverse, huge theater scene in Toronto, one of the largest in North America. And it's been very, very frustrating for our theater audience, our artists to be sitting on their hands. but not that they actually have only been sitting on their hands, because they've actually pivoted a great deal during this time to do work online and to do some innovative work in what we'd call safe spaces.
Wonderful. So what are your organizations doing to assist theater companies, artists, and anyone involved in the art and business of theater?
Well, the Toronto Arts Council is the major funder for not-for-profit theater in Toronto. So, of course, we have been providing support to all of our organizations throughout the pandemic to keep them going. And we've also been working to make sure that the community is fully informed of all the supports that are out there. We also did a major fundraising campaign to help individual theater artists survive the gap between their contracts ending and government programs starting. And so we've been focused on keeping as much as possible the arts ecosystem healthy and poised to jump in. We've also been working with a number of other organizations, including Ryerson University, on a safe reopening guide called Lights On, so that as things open up, our arts organizations can really know what are best practices, so they are ready. We have always provided support to projects, and many organizations have applied for project funding to do work that is outdoors if they can't perform indoors. So we've been trying to be as responsive as we can to allow organizations and artists and theater companies stay in front of their audiences and engage with their donors, and also invest in creative talent and creative material, new plays, new videos, behind the scenes content, which audiences have really loved. I think some of this work is going to continue once the doors open. To be able to hear the playwright talk on your computer before you go to the show, or an actor, that behind the scenes, I think that's really going to be here to stay.
Definitely. So what can spectators expect live theater to actually look like in the coming months?
Well, the coming months here in Toronto are a bit of a crystal ball gazing exercise. We've just heard today that the city is not going to be issuing permits for large events such as Caravana or the CNE until September. So these coming months, I think the city is eager to see the city reopen, but it has to reopen safely.
What advice do you have for would-be spectators who might be a little bit hesitant about attending any kind of live show or event?
Well, I think the outdoor activities, I think that people can be quite assured, and people can always wear their masks even if they've got their vaccinations. But what has been happening in the past is circles have been drawn so that it's very safe distancing. And of course, with being outdoors, the wind is blowing. Indoors, a number of organizations have been doing test drives in between the lockdowns and have had absolutely no breakouts. The theater business, as you know, Christine, I mean, so efficient. So, the show goes up at 8. All the details are thought through. So that is extending, of course, also to safety precautions, so that people will be checked. People will register in advance. They'll make sure that there's safe distancing. So all of the kind of best practices which are outlined not only in Toronto, but around the world, as we're looking at other cities and other countries reopening, we're learning what is best practices. And with our Lights On guide, I think we will be able to reassure audiences that all the theater companies are keeping the safety of the audience member first and foremost in mind.
Perfect. So what are you most excited about as live theater makes a comeback?
Oh, gosh, from a person who went out 5 nights a week to someone who hasn't, I think just about anything that is going on, I'm going to be thrilled to see personally, whether it's an innovative first-time playwright or whether it is more of a classic. I'm just going to eat it up hungrily. I have to say that last summer when we had porch songs on our street, it was like the first time I'd ever gone to the theater. I was like a kid again. I was so emotional to have that experience of these 2 superb performers doing such wonderful songs and relating with the audience and relating with the children who were at a safe distance and who said what songs they'd like to hear. And it just brought it all back to me when I first started my career as a theater producer of what that magic is. So it's going to be like a kid in a candy store when we're out and able to open.
Adorable. I know I feel the same way. Thank you so much, Claire. I appreciate your time. Dear viewers, I'm Christine Sloan Stoddard, arts correspondent for the Toronto Business Journal. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Dr. Sam Dubé here once again for the Toronto Business Journal, and we're lucky to have with us today Mallory Mensch, who is a City Hall reporter for San Francisco. Mallory, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you wrote an article recently that appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle where you talked about brazen shoplifting and it being a serious retail problem. What has the impact of this shoplifting been on businesses in San Francisco?
Well, shoplifting has definitely been an issue in San Francisco for a number of years, but police say that the incidents have gotten more violent and more brazen during the pandemic, even though more stores have been closed. Walgreens, a major retailer, obviously has shut down 17 stores in the past 5 years in the city. They do still have 53, but other smaller stores deal with this constantly. We've seen videos of cleared out shelves and people in hoodies stuffing bags in broad daylight. And the issue, especially with closing stores, has a big impact on residents who may need to go farther or out of the neighborhood to get the things that they need, especially if they are pharmacies. And some of those pharmacies now are also providing vaccines. So it's a big issue both for retailers and the cost that they incur and for the residents that they serve.
So, Mallory, what is driving this phenomenon? What is at the root cause here?
There's a number of issues. San Francisco has great economic inequality. There's many people who are homeless because housing is so unaffordable. Some of those people also struggle with substance abuse. So there are some instances of people who may be stealing to support that habit or more crimes of opportunity because of the economic plight that the US and the rest of the world is going through because of the pandemic. But actually the bigger issue, which was described by the head of CDS's, he's the director of organized retail crime in a hearing last week, he said organized retail crime is really amounting for a vast majority, 85% of the dollar losses of these retailers. And these are, he described them as organized networks where there'll be multi-layers of direction and they'll send shoppers out to hit maybe even a dozen stores a day with lists of specific items to steal. And then they'll send those off, they'll get a cut, and they're often resold online on Amazon or other online marketplaces. And they do find that a lot of the things that are sold around the country actually originate in San Francisco. So that's why he called it an epicenter of organized retail crime.
So there's a literal hierarchy of crime happening here. And I mean, is there any estimate of how many people might be involved or how many networks? Are they related? Like, is there any talk as to the organizational structure?
I believe there are a number of different entities involved, and there has been some prosecution and major busts in the past years of that in the San Francisco Bay Area, which extends beyond just the city of San Francisco. There was an $8 million ring that was busted last year of organized retail crime. So this has been on the forefront of the minds of police and prosecutors for a while, and extends even beyond just San Francisco. But it appears from what they described that many of the actual stealing is occurring in downtown San Francisco.
So speaking of beyond San Francisco, then how do the costs of the thefts and the costs of the security to help prevent these thefts compare to other major U.S. cities?
Sure. So I have CVS and Walgreens provided some of their data in the hearing before the city last week. In CVS, if you look at the San Francisco Bay Area, which includes a number of cities and 9 counties, 42% of the losses in CVS come just from San Francisco, while their stores are only 8% of the market share. In the Bay Area, Walgreens, they described and compared their costs for security and for theft in San Francisco. Theft, including the professional theft like they described, was 4 times the average of other stores elsewhere in the country. It was a little bit less of a gap for major cities, Chicago and New York. Chicago, it was 1.5 times more. New York, it was 1.2 times more. And as a result, the chain spent significantly more on security in San Francisco as well, even though it's not always successful and security guards have been assaulted at some of these locations. So Walgreens said they spend 35 times more on security guards in San Francisco than elsewhere in the country. It's also an expensive place, which has a higher minimum wage. So that's to be factored in. That is actually slightly less, they said, than in New York City, but it is more than in Chicago and in LA. And as a result, I mentioned that sometimes security guards have been assaulted and workers themselves do not feel safe and are trained not actually to confront these thieves if it could turn into violence. And Walgreens said that workplace threats in San Francisco are 20 times the national average.
So then the logical question would be, what is the appeal of San Francisco to these criminal networks? What?
I'm sorry.
I'm asking you what you think the appeal of San Francisco is to these criminal networks.
That's a great question. I think that maybe they feel there isn't as extensive of security or prosecution in the city. Some people discussed in the hearing also California's criminal laws, which some felt they have been made more lenient in recent years. So for instance, if you steal under $950, so just under $1,000.
Catch the rest of our interview with Mallory on the next episode of the Toronto Business Journal.